now Caesar goes over to Gaul, and while he is away, Clodius runs for, before he goes, Clodius runs for tribune of the plebs, and then in 58 BC, he is basically the leading figure in Rome as tribune, because what he does is, well, I didn't mention this, but in 64, let me just go back a second. 64 BC, these people called the collegia had been banned in the city of Rome because of violence. Now, I said who they were, but it was in the context of talking about like society and immigrants coming to the city of Rome. The collegia are kind of working men's groups, religious groups that gather and that meet, and they supervise shrines, and they kind of provide mutual aid for each other. So they will bury their members. They sometimes will they'll give loans to their members. Like, they're kind of a little mutual aid society. We had versions of this in a way in the U.S. in kind of the early 20th century. They were called mutual aid societies. Yeah, mutual aid societies. So it's kind of like that. It's not totally like that, but that's one feature of collegia. But the other feature of collegia was they often had patrons, and these working men. So these are like strong men. They're dock workers. They're people that often engage in physical labor in the city. They're construction workers. They're tough. They're unified, right? And if you're the patron of these guys, you can convince them to help you out in some ways by providing muscle when you run for office. And so there was some violence that occurred in the city that was blamed, probably rightly so, on collegia. So in 64 BC, by decree of the Senate through the consuls of that year, collegia were all disbanded. Like they were all became illegal, which is a pretty dramatic move. So there had been these workingmen associations that people had relied on for support that all suddenly go away. Now, the reason I bring this up in 58 BC is because Clodius, the very first thing that he does is he brings these guys back. He re-legalizes the collegia. Now, knowing what we know about the way that Roman society works, like considering people like Livius Drusus, who enfranchises the Italians, why would Clodius do this? Why would the first thing that he does when he's tribune of the plebs, why would he get a law to make the collegia all legal again? What might be driving him? What benefit might he receive in doing that?
Is it thugs for his consul campaign next year?
Okay, so you got it partway right. It is that these people will owe him. He is now, they owe him personally. So now he has thugs. Now he's not going to run for consulship right away, but he can use them. He can use them to intimidate voters. He can use them as kind of a gang in the city. They are there now available to him. And so now Clodius can ram through a bunch of very radical proposals. So one of the things that he does right away is the grain dole had been heavily subsidized under the Gracchi. The grain dole had then been pulled back under Sulla, and that had been kind of done away with. Clodius now brings this back and brings it back hard. Not subsidized grain, free grain. Okay, everybody's going to get free grain. Any Roman man, regardless of amount of wealth or property, regardless of, obviously you have to be minimum age, but once you're an adult male, you get access to free grain. The amount of grain, you don't really have to know this, but I'll tell you, is 5 modii a month. That's more than enough to feed one person. It's about enough for 1.5 adults. So I think the idea here is a person could rely on this certainly for themselves, and it would at least feed a child, or it would, kind of subsidize the amount of grain that a family would take. Now, obviously, this is hugely popular among the lower classes. If any of you know anything about economics, you might be able to see where there could be some problems with this later on. And actually that will rear its head very, very quickly, so we'll talk about that in a second. So free grain for everybody in the year 58 BC under Clodius. The next thing that he does, which is very, very smart, I don't have a lot of room to write, sorry. The next thing he does, which is very, very smart in 58 BC, I'll keep that up there, has to do with Cato. Cato is just this thorn in the side of anybody that wants to do anything popular, anybody that wants to aggrandize themselves. Clodius realizes that he has got to get rid of Cato. He can't kill him. I mean, he could, but probably, I don't know if even he could get away with that. So what he does is he says, hey, Cato, I've got a very important job for you. We need, we've had these corrupt governors. There have been some new provinces over in the east. The province of Cyprus really needs somebody who can really pay good attention to the books. There's an S there, I just can't put it there. Really needs somebody with your discipline. So you're going to go over, we're going to have a plebeian law that sends Cato over to Cyprus. And of course Cato's like, yeah, I can do that. I'm a great, I'm really, So he goes over to Cyprus, and that gets Cato out of town. So now, who's going to oppose Clodius at this point? The ringleader of the opposition is now totally out of town. And so then Clodius starts getting real personal. Remember who does he hold a grudge against? I mentioned this in the beginning of the lecture. Who does he hold a grudge against? Do you remember? Cicero. He hates Cicero. Now, when you go and work in the corporate world, you are going to get these emails, and they're going to come from HR. They're the worst. They're going to send you an email. Okay, somebody is going to leave their crap in the fridge, or they're going to make a mess in the microwave. And what they're going to do, everyone's going to know who it is. It's Tammy. Tammy's the one that keeps doing this. And instead of the HR person going to Tammy and saying, hey, Tammy, stop leaving your crap in the fridge, what HR is going to do is send a company-wide email. And they're going to say, this is not aimed at anybody specifically, but, we should take better care of the fridge. Like, they will do this in this really passive way. Clodius passes a law that anybody who has executed a Roman without a trial is to be exiled. There is one person that has done that, right? It's Cicero, right? So this is like an anti-Cicero law, right? And Clodius channels, right, the HR rep that you will someday work for, and gets Cicero kicked out of the city on the basis of on what he did. Now, to be fair, what Cicero did was illegal. He did have the SCU, right? He did have the ultimate decree of the Senate backing him. But again, it's kind of sketchy, right? Because his ultimate decree of the Senate was really to investigate the Catilinarian, was to investigate the conspiracy. It was not. He did not get the SCU to execute those prisoners. So Clodius is able to get his revenge on Cicero. And in fact, he just rubs it in because Cicero obviously realizes that he's got no chance. Right? So he just leaves voluntarily, which is what Verres did when Cicero prosecuted them. Verres left voluntarily. And that, hopefully then you just avoid the conviction that way, because you've given your enemies what they want, which is you've gone out of town. Clodius is like, no. Just because you've left voluntarily, we are still passing this law. We are still passing judgment on you. And Cicero is formally exiled. Like, it is a formal exile by law. It's not just that he's voluntarily exiled in the face of pressure. They carry this all the way through, and Cicero is kicked out of the city. At this point, Clodius is absolutely deluded with power. He is running the city. He has no meaningful opposition. He's going after his personal enemies. This is a very dangerous place, right, to be. And Clodius begins going after anybody associated with Cicero. Who's the next guy that's associated with Cicero? Remember this guy who I've said has been kind of went on campaign with Cicero, had kind of been friends with Cicero. Do you remember who it is? It's a strange relationship between these two. You wouldn't think they would be buddies. Do you remember who it was? Anybody? I don't expect you to. It's Pompey. Pompey. Pompey has been kind of friendly-ish with Cicero. And Pompey says, well, maybe this was a little harsh. Like, should we really have sent Cicero like all the way? Like, should we have kicked him out? And Clodius is like, right? You do not oppose me. I don't care if you're Pompey. And so Clodius starts going after Pompey in speeches and starts saying that he's going to undo the laws that had given Pompey's veterans land, and he's going to actually like go after Pompey. And all of these collegia members start physically intimidating Pompey, such that Pompey actually starts staying away from the forum. He begins to be afraid for his life as well. Pompey is able to use one of his clients, if I can, there we go. Oh, no. Pompey is able to use one of his clients to help him out, a guy named, nope, oh goodness. Well, I probably don't need to write it. It's only 4 letters. Milo. So Milo is this guy that Pompey is able to. There we go. Milo. Pompey is a guy who. Milo is a guy who Pompey is one of Pompey's clients. I don't know if Milo was a veteran with Pompey. I don't remember what their pre-existing relationship is, but they have one. And Milo is going to run for tribune of the plebs next year also. So Pompey kind of secures this guy's allegiance, and this guy starts helping Pompey out against the threats that are against his life from Clodius. Eventually, members of the Senate band together, and they agree that with Pompey that Cicero should be recalled from exile. And so by the end of that year, the Centuriate Assembly votes to recall Cicero from exile. So that's what happens there. So you have these various alliances. You have the alliance of the Triumvirate, and then you have these kind of chaotic figures like Clodius, and you have Milo, who's kind of allied with Pompey, but also is kind of going to do his own thing, running for tribune of the plebs. In 57 BC, which is the next year, Clodius is out of power, so he can't be tribune of the plebs again, and Milo is in power. So Milo comes in as tribune of the plebs in 57 BC. And of course, almost immediately, Milo is, and anybody else in Rome, is saddled with the grain shortage, right? Big surprise. You make grain free. Okay, that's fine. The state can provide free grain, but the private sector cannot compete with free grain. Who is going to bring a bunch of grain into the city when they are competing with free grain? If people can get their grain for free, they are not going to pay the full price for grain. So naturally, there is a huge grain shortage. There is not an unlimited supply of grain just because you make it free. So you have the inevitable consequences of a price ceiling, or in this case, free grain, in that you have a major grain shortage. This makes people furious. Obviously, they had just been promised free grain, and nobody has grain because of the shortage. So this leads to violence in the city. People are just angry at this point, and they don't even know why. They're hungry, they're mad, people are starting to fight each other. So you've got gangs affiliated with Milo, you've got gangs affiliated with Clodius. They're all fighting each other in the city. There's just rampant gang violence. And eventually, Cicero, who's come back from exile, proposes that somebody needs to be given a supreme command to do whatever it takes to resolve the grain crisis, to secure the grain supply. Naturally, that's going to go to Pompey. Cicero wants Pompey to have that command. Cicero and Pompey are again, they have this kind of interesting connection between the two of them. Cicero owes Pompey for bringing him back from exile, and they help each other out. So Pompey is going to take command of the grain supply, which involves a variety of things. It's a 5-year command, which is comparable to Julius Caesar. So again, something else is going on here too, which is prestige. Caesar has a 5-year command. Pompey gets a 5-year command. That there is clearly a kind of rivalry that's developing between these two. There's supposed to be a triumvirate. There's supposed to be three guys, but in reality, it's Pompey and Caesar that are really emerging as the two. And by the way, this same thing will happen with the second triumvirate too. Three doesn't work. Inevitably, one of them kind of gets left out. And in this case, it's Crassus. So Crassus decides that what he is going to do, he doesn't get a 5-year command of anything, but what he wants to do is go win some glory for himself. So he decides that he is going to go off to Parthia. That's what he wants to do. He wants to go and conquer Rome's age-old enemy, the other major empire that Rome is aware of, which is their neighbor to the east, Parthia. So the three men convene. They come together in 56 BC. So this is 5 years after the first triumvirate, the 5 years after the original, like Julius Caesar becomes consul. They come together and they have a meeting. They all come into Gaul, because Nearer Gaul, that's where Caesar's province is. He can't leave Nearer Gaul or he loses his imperium. So they all go to meet. In addition to these three men meeting, like half the Senate go there too, which tells you something. The Republic, in which the Senate all kind of deliberate and are running the show, and really the magistrates serve the Senate, this is no longer functioning, right? Power is held by these three men, functionally. And although there are these rogue elements, like Milo and Clodius and stuff like that, obviously there are those things happening. And there's Cato, there are other, Cicero, there are other power brokers, but clearly, right, these three men are gaining a bigger and bigger slice of the pie, such that a big chunk of the Senate come to this meeting in Nearer Gaul to hash out what is going to happen over the next few years.
Hey, did you get something out of that video, or maybe learn something about Roman history that you didn't know before? Would you just click that like button? It's the best thing you can do to help the channel. The videos keep playing, and if you click the like button, it tells YouTube that you want more videos like this one. Maybe you have a question about what we talked about, or you know something, or have a comment that you want to share. Would you please type that into the comment box? I read those comments, and that means I answer questions, or I listen to feedback, but also a lot of other people read those comments. And so if you want to add something to the discussion for other people, if you do that in the comments, that will help the video as well, and just it'll keep the discussion going. Finally, if you want to get these videos when they come out and not just hope that YouTube is going to tell you, you can subscribe to the channel. Click the subscribe button and you'll get the videos as soon as I put them out. They'll come up to the front of your YouTube homepage, and wouldn't that be great? The last thing that I'll mention is my podcast, the Pax Romana podcast. I update that podcast every week. We do a couple of different things. One is we go through the story of the Roman Empire from the death of Julius Caesar on a week-by-week basis, all the way through as far as you guys are interested in going. I think right now we're in the 3rd century AD. So you can listen to those as they go, almost like an audiobook. It's free. Or if you want to just dip into particular episodes, that's fine. The other thing I do from time to time on that podcast is I answer listener questions with kind of a longer treatment about some particular topic, theme, or area that listeners are interested in. So with that, thanks for watching the video, and take care.